Peoria, Arizona, 1990. It's moving-in day. A fresh start for multiple sclerosis sufferer Lynn Carlson, her son, 20-year-old David, and his new wife.
Lynn was so thoughtful and so kind.
Oh, no. Over here.
She bought a house free and clear, and she said, come stay with me, you can help take care of me, and you'll also have a place to live.
This is gonna be good for us, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, she had serious health issues that required care.
David's wife, Doris, is 10 years his senior and the perfect person to help his ailing mom. She is a qualified caregiver.
She worked as a nursing assistant from time to time.
But now that she's living in Lynn's house, Doris doesn't see the need to work.
Looks like your checks are here.
All she does is sponge off the monthly checks from her mother-in-law's trust account.
Doris was a freeloader. She was somebody looking for the easy way out. You know, they basically used Lynn as a cash machine.
David and Doris do nothing but spend his mother's money.
Are you two thinking about getting a job? I could use some help.
Mom, I've looked, okay? There's nothing.
David would do whatever Doris wanted him to do. He certainly didn't lift a finger to help his mother.
David, I'm sure if you tried.
Hey! Stop picking on David.
Over the next 4 years, they convince Lynn to take out not one, but 2 mortgages against the house that total $94,000.
So all of a sudden, the house that used to be free and clear they were making payments on it. They took out that money and blew it on just junk stuff.
It was all about the money because the money afforded Doris to have the life she wanted, which was to do nothing.
Doris and David are supposed to care for Lynn, but they don't.
David and Dory would not do her laundry, and you know, during the night she may have an accident and soil her sheets.
David?
Nobody would come and help her.
That is disgusting.
David, please.
They didn't love her. They didn't care for her. There's nobody there for her at that point.
It must have been absolutely heartbreaking for Lynn to realize that her own son was letting her suffer.
2 years later, both mortgages are spent. So Doris finds another way to raise cash: young lodgers.
They would collect the money, never tell Lynn where that money went. They would just spend it on themselves.
Lynn's house and her lifestyle are spiraling out of control.
Oh, look at that.
Cheated.
As a caregiver, Doris must have known that the best environment for Lynn would be one that was peaceful and quiet. But that didn't mean anything to Doris. Doris wanted more money.
Lynn finally has enough. She decides to move out into an assisted care facility. And she takes her income with her.
The money stopped coming. The annuity checks went to the convalescent center and not to the house.
David and Doris are now forced to fend for themselves.
$1,600 per month, so that was gone. That was their income.
Lynn settles into her new home,
Oh, you spoil me.
receiving the attention she's lacked for so long.
She grew to really like the care facility. She got to know some of the other residents, and she really started enjoying herself.
We have visitors.
The same can't be said for David and Doris. They're drowning in debt.
They were about to lose the house. The utilities hadn't been paid. Everything was going to be shut off.
Listen, Mom, we kind of need some help.
They were definitely in dire straits.
On a rare visit to Lynn, Doris demands even more money.
We need $6 grand. Now.
Well,
She says, I'm going to talk to the financial advisor.
I'll talk to my advisor, and I'll let you know.
After years of being bilked for her money,
You'll get back to us.
Lynn's trying to get tough.
You should be looking after your son, you mean old cow. Is everything okay in here?
But Doris isn't the kind of girl to take no for an answer.
When someone is generous to a psychopath, the only thing they can expect is trouble.
Peoria, Arizona, 1996. Doris Carlson is consumed by a deep yearning for her mother-in-law's money.
She just wanted to obtain the riches without having to work for anything.
If her mother-in-law dies, Doris and her husband, David, can claim their inheritance. But it might take years for Lynn to die of natural causes.
That's when she really decided that she was going to kill Lynn.
Doris decides to outsource the job. She turns to one of her lodgers, 20-year-old Dan McCreakin.
You want to make some money?
Doris says to Dan, how about if I give you $20,000 to go kill Lynn?
Oh, you're joking, right?
No.
And Dan thinks about it for a while and says, okay.
17-year-old roommate, Scott Smith, volunteers too.
They agreed that they would split the money.
In the early hours of October 25th, 1996, Doris sets her get-rich-quick scheme in motion.
Okay.
She planned every aspect. She bought the knives, she bought the gloves, she drove them to the assisted living complex. Everything.
They use a key that Dory had given them to get in. The plan is to make it look like a burglary.
I can just see her sitting in that car, just waiting for the money to roll in, waiting for Lynn to get killed.
But inside, there are second thoughts about doing Doris's dirty work.
Dan goes in there. He's like, I don't want to do this.
I don't think I can do this. Just hurry up and do it!
And then Scott says, come on, let's get this done. So Dan starts stabbing Lynn in the chest.
Dan stabs Lynn 10 times before fleeing in a panic.
Just drop it, man, drop it!
They run out, they don't take the TV, they give up on this thing about it being a burglary. Dory says,
Well?
is it done? And
Yeah, it's done.
one of the boys says, yeah, we took care of it.
But they haven't. Lynn is still alive.
Later on that morning, one of the employees at the care home went by to check on her. They found Lynn in there conscious.
This is sort of a case of dumb, dumber, and dumbest. I mean, that's really what it is. Doris wasn't the brightest bulb in the chandelier, and these two guys helping her weren't either.
The next morning, as police investigate the crime, there's an unexpected visitor, Lynn's son, David.
And everybody kind of looked around and thought, well, why are you here now? You know, you never come to visit her.
Detective Bill Lang still remembers David's reaction to hearing of the attack on his mother.
He didn't become upset or emotional in any way. All he said was, how is she and can she talk?
Can she talk?
No less than 4 times
Can she talk?
did he ask me, can she talk?
Just come this way, sir.
Everyone is waiting for Lynn to speak, but she's too ill.
At that point, we were kind of at a stalemate. We had a lot of suspicions, but we had absolutely nothing to work on.
Doris thinks her secret is safe. Until 3 days later.
When so many people are involved in such a horrible crime, eventually, someone's going to talk.
Get a call from an individual who says he's a friend of basically everybody at the house. During one of his visits, they admitted to the attack.
The informant agrees to take part in a sting.
What have you been doing? What happened?
In this particular case, what we did is we bugged his car.
It was great. Just went in and got out. Left no fingerprints. The cops have gotten nothing.
The 4 are arrested. As prosecutors develop their case, Lynn loses her battle for life.
The last 6 months of Lynn's life were horrible. Her wounds never healed. It was a gradual spiraling down to death.
Charges are amended from attempted murder to murder. Daniel McCreakin is found guilty of first-degree murder, receiving a life sentence. 17-year-old Scott Smith gets 10 years in prison for second-degree murder.
If they hadn't come across Doris, they probably would have gone on to maybe simple, not maybe great, but certainly not murderous lives.
David Carlson is convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and receives life.
Who lets their wife kill their mother? David.
In July 1999, Doris Carlson is found guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and first-degree burglary. She is sentenced to death, later reduced to life in prison.
It's all money. Basically, that's all it was, is it was just for money.
Kind and generous to a fault, Lynn Carlson's only sin was to live too long.
Who kills a defenseless, wheelchair-bound woman? Who's supporting you? Doris Carlson does. That's who.
Sunrise in Phoenix, Arizona, 2009. The daily struggle of life begins in a working-class area.
It's a neighborhood with lots of street life, you know, and people who don't have a lot of money.
One of those getting by on the fringes is 33-year-old Angela Simpson.
Let me help you with that.
She's engaging, she has a personality, she's friendly. You might have thought her a little odd, but she was very, very pleasant.
Well, aren't you a nice girl?
Maybe.
This is a young woman who is very bright.
Good man.
But Angela has a dark side. She funds a drug habit by turning tricks.
Hey, sugar.
In her mind, she doesn't just walk these streets. She owns them.
Angela may see herself as the only sane person in an insane world.
News at 10, a convicted sex offender is offered to be chemically castrated.
An insane world she wants to set right.
The man said.
Sex offenders like him should be punished.
By enforcing her own moral code.
We need to get him.
Her, life every day was seeking out the people that she thought she needed to take care of in the sense of extract some retribution.
Filthy pig.
Angela Simpson sees herself as an avenging angel.
Believing she has the moral high ground. In August 2009, Angela and an accomplice break into the home of a known sex offender.
Come here. No! Who are you? Get up. Get up. Sit down!
Deciding that you are going to sit as a judge, jury, and executioner, that takes a decision to do it and a will to follow through. And Miss Simpson clearly had that.
Angela terrorizes the man, steals his money, and leaves him tied up, with the promise she will return.
We'll be back.
But he escapes the binds and calls 911. Police will soon discover he is not Angela's first hostage.
Something happened somewhere in Angela's background to turn her into the type of person that received pleasure out of inflicting pain.
It might have begun in Angela's early life.
Her childhood was chaotic. I believe she was in and out of foster care. Abuse, both physical and sexual, I believe, at various times in her life.
As she grows up, addiction dulls the pain, but costs her dearly.
Hey, Mama. How my babies?
She loses custody of her kids.
I'll be back soon.
Her natural mother was the primary caregiver for them because of her criminal conduct, her criminal history.
The world hasn't been kind to Angela, so she wants to make it right by assuming the role of the enforcer of these streets. 46-year-old Terry Neely admires this powerful woman.
Fine.
He's often confined to a wheelchair. And to impress Angela, he says he's close to the local cops.
Heard about the crackdown?
What crackdown?
Cops are doing raids around here.
That's so.
And that clearly was the wrong thing to say to somebody like Angela Simpson.
She was a criminal herself, after all. People who are snitches are certainly looked down upon amongst those who commit crimes.
Stop. He's a frickin' snitch.
Terry's not a snitch, and he's boasting to the wrong girl. The misunderstanding will seal his fate.
It was the worst mistake he ever made.
In a working-class area of Phoenix, Arizona, on August 2nd, 2009,
Fancy running into you, handsome?
Terry Neely is hoping to impress Angela Simpson.
You want me?
And it seems to be working. Angela rules these streets. She decides who stays, who goes, and who lives.
You don't need that.
Or not.
You wouldn't want her in your neighborhood. You wouldn't want her in your town. You wouldn't want her around anybody that you knew.
Take a seat, sweetie.
She's very, very dangerous.
As self-proclaimed avenger of the streets, Angela believes Terry is a police snitch and wants her revenge.
Kinky, are we? Hey, careful.
When she learned that this man was at least boasting about being a snitch, that was good enough for a death sentence, as far as she was concerned.
What'd you do that for?
In Angela's world,
Filthy snitch.
murder is too kind.
I just said those things so you think that I'm important.
Terry has to be taught a lesson.
I think she chose this guy as much because she didn't like him, and the snitch thing was an excuse.
I'm not a snitch.
She could have killed him quickly, but that wouldn't have been any fun for her.
Angela moves from avenger
Look in the mirror.
to torturer.
She made him watch in a mirror. That was just adding more to his anguish.
Look in the mirror, you filthy snitch.
The scenario is about as horrific as it gets. She beat him, bashed him with a tire iron.
Angela is a truly, truly evil woman.
Terry is left bound overnight. And the next morning,
You don't have to do this.
Stop
Please.
your begging.
there's more.
Please, stop. You can stop.
Stop. Stop your whimpering.
Please.
A 3-inch nail.
Stay still.
Angela did unspeakable things to Terry.
You're pathetic.
It seems nothing is too cruel for Angela.
The pain and suffering it caused her victim
Open your mouth.
was enjoyable for her.
Open your mouth. Open! Open your mouth!
That's why she did it over a 3-day period. For the sadist, once the victim dies, the party's over.
The Avengers party finally ends.
Hey! Not so feisty today, are you?
finally tying a cable around his neck and bringing it to an end. She said her one regret is that she brought it to an end too quickly. Wished this had dragged on for 2 or 3 more days.
That's what you get for being a snitch.
There is one final indignity.
She used some sort of sharp instrument and severed his limbs in order to make him more compact. He was stuffed into a barrel.
When Angela was done, she threw Terry's body parts in a trash can and lit it on fire. To her, he was just a piece of garbage.
But there's one loose end the Avenger has forgotten. Terry's wheelchair is found outside Angela's apartment. And inside, Terry's blood. Angela's questioned, and without hesitation, lays out her ideas about justice.
She wanted to talk about what she did. She was proud of her handiwork.
A full confession.
You feel guilty? For what? Killing a snitch?
She loved telling the story.
Why did you make him watch himself in the mirror?
There was just utterly no BS about it.
Because he had to see what he deserved.
She did it. She took credit for it proudly and said she'd do it again.
Angela Simpson proudly pleads guilty. In 2012, she's sentenced to life for first-degree murder, kidnapping, and abandonment of a body.
She's not ever eligible to be released from prison.
But the Queen of Justice doesn't think justice has been served.
Something you don't see very often is someone just immediately after conviction saying, they gave me too light a sentence. They should have given me the death penalty.
The reasons for Angela's cruel crusade remain uncertain.
After Angela was arrested, she said that she'd had mental health issues for years, since she was 10 years old, but she didn't want any sympathy for that. Angela sees herself as just fine.
I don't think that Angela Simpson would even want to share credit with God and say that God told me to do it, as so many killers do. This was her stage, and nobody better step on it.
Love is a powerful force.
A passionate and intense relationship.
It can bring people together.
She would have done anything to ensure that they could live happily ever after together.
Get out! And tear them apart.
Get out!
She needed to eliminate him for her own happiness. "100 miles north of Sydney, Australia, in the quiet town of Maitland, 2007. Renee Burns prepares for a family barbecue.
Steve, can you please give me a hand?
Her partner, 30-year-old Stephen Quire, dotes on their kids, but he struggles to please Renee.
Stephen worked hard, brought home his paycheck, supported his family. He was described by others as a normal, hardworking guy.
Stephen has one child with Renee and is stepfather to another.
Stephen Quire had taken over the role of the father to the child of Renee Burns, and it's quite clear that that child worship the ground he walked on.
He loved her, and he raised her little girl as if she was his own.
Their guests today are Stephen's sister Amanda and her new partner, 23-year-old Tanya Lane.
Through that relationship is how she fostered relationships with both Stephen Quire and Renee Burns.
Over the next few months, Tanya becomes close to the couple. Renee cherishes this exciting new friendship. Because her own relationship is disintegrating.
I'm not a tea towel.
Oh, come on, my hands are dry.
Get off me.
What's your problem?
They argued a lot, they fought a lot. Neighbours said they heard them fighting a lot.
She's not the only one with problems.
Hey, I'm so sorry to hear about you and Amanda. It's for the best.
Tanya Lane's relationship with Amanda had ended by then. Tanya was spending a lot of time at the Rutherford home.
I've been thinking about you.
When Tanya and Amanda break up, Tanya turns to Renee for comfort.
Sorry,
But she wants more than a shoulder to cry on.
You want to go back to my place? Yeah.
Renee and Tanya became lovers.
They went to great lengths to conceal the relationship. They purchased mobile phones.
That one is yours. Don't let Steve see it, okay?
Duh.
For the specific use of communicating with each other.
Hello? Hi, sexy. Want to come over to my place?
Yes.
Renee Burns had commenced a relationship with Tanya Lane, a passionate and intense relationship.
I wish I could stay here forever.
You can.
Tanya is head over heels.
What about the girls?
But Renee won't leave her kids. For Tanya, a part-time lover is not enough.
Tanya Lane was besotted with Renee Burns and would have done anything to keep the relationship going.
On December 23rd, 2008, Tanya asks for a meeting with her lover's partner, Stephen. Intrigued to know what's going on, Stephen agrees to a late-night walk.
They walked away from houses. They walked away from where people might be able to see what was going on. All of a sudden, this four-wheel drive emerged.
A man got out and shot Steve in the head.
The gunman turns to Tanya. He doesn't shoot her. He abducts her.
She was only detained for a matter of minutes before this man wearing the balaclava released her.
There was no demand for ransom and she wasn't hurt.
Incredibly, Stephen survives the shooting. But the police can't trace the gunman.
No one was ever arrested or charged in relation to the shooting.
Hey, Dad, we're really hungry.
I'm gonna order pizza.
If Stephen expects sympathy from Renee, he doesn't get it. Instead, he's left to deal with the kids while their mom is missing in action.
Steve was very frustrated and angry.
Where have you been?
Met up with Tanya. Went for a drink.
A drink? It's been 4 hours.
We got talking. I actually had some fun for a change.
The relationship deteriorated.
Some fun?
Why are you thinking of changing sides?
You're pathetic.
Stephen doesn't realize how close he's come to the truth. Tanya's concocting a way to have Renee all to herself.
Love triangles can be, and frequently are, dangerous.
January 2010, the country town of Maitland, Australia.
It's him. He's early. Get dressed.
Renee Burns' partner, Stephen Quire, ignores the gossip until he comes face to face with the truth.
Steve, she doesn't love you. It's over. Steve, let her go. Get out. Ted, go. Get out.
Stephen Quire banned her, said that he didn't want Tanya Lane ever coming back to the house again.
Oh, well, aren't you just the hero, you big man?
When Steve found out that Renee was involved intimately with Tanya, Steve and Renee began to fight not only verbally, but physically.
Stephen is now convinced of one thing. Tanya was behind the attempt on his life.
Stephen believed that Tanya Lane had lured him to that location.
Steve believed that Tanya had been the one that shot him, but he stayed around. He forbid Renee to see Tanya.
The two lovers can't bear to be parted.
You okay?
Yeah, kind of.
Leave it to me.
In late February 2010, Tanya and Renee finally get their wish.
Renee Burns moved out of the house and moved in with Tanya Lane.
Can I get you water?
But their newfound bliss is shattered when police come knocking.
So when did you last see Stephen?
They bring sad news.
Stephen's dead.
Stephen Quire has been found dead.
His body was in a state of decomposition at the time it was found in the national park.
He had a gunshot wound to the chest and has been dead for weeks.
Our focus was, well, who is Stephen Quire and why would someone want him dead?
Why are you asking?
His former partner, Renee, seems unfazed. She and the kids haven't seen Stephen for a month.
I thought he'd left.
The least Renee could have done was report her husband missing to the police, but that didn't occur to her.
The police smell a rat.
They were very suspicious immediately that both women were involved.
Until detectives discover Tanya Lane has recently been shopping for a gun. An ex-con tells cops he supplied her with a unique weapon.
He said I was able to obtain a gun for her and sold it to her for $700.
It was a World War II flare gun that had been modified to fire shotgun ammunition.
Tanya Lane is charged with murder. The police believe Renee lied to protect her lover, and she's charged as an accessory to murder.
Both Tanya Lane and Renee Burns colluded between each other to invent false stories as to the potential whereabouts of Stephen.
With both women proclaiming their innocence, prosecutors must piece together Tanya's murder plot.
She planned this killing. She travelled to the home of Renee Burns and Stephen Quire late in the evening. She went into the house.
Tanya Lane was desperately in love with Renee Burns and would have done anything to ensure that they could live happily ever after together.
After the murder, Tanya dumps Steve's body and the gun. In court, Tanya insists she's innocent. But in prison, it's a different story.
Tanya Lane had made a telephone call from jail where she admitted that she was the shooter.
Her own words seal Tanya's fate. In August 2013, she changes her plea to guilty and is sentenced to 17 years behind bars. Renee Burns pleads guilty to accessory to murder after the fact. She receives 4 years in prison.
Renee Burns definitely knew about the killing, but the evidence is fairly sparse as to where she was and what she knew and when.
Tanya's dream of being with Renee comes true when they are briefly incarcerated together.
So it certainly appeared that the relationship continued whilst they were on remand and in jail together.
It's a final disrespect to the memory of Stephen Quire, a loving father who stood in the way of a wicked obsession.
Steve was an obstacle. Tanya needed to eliminate him for her own happiness. And that's what she did.